Welcome to the System Simplified podcast, where we feature top leaders who share stories on how to successfully systemize a business. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hello, Adi Clevitt here with the System Simplified podcast, where we interview top entrepreneurs, founders, and thought leaders about systematizing a business. And this podcast is being brought to you by Business Success Consulting Group. At Business Success Consulting Group, we create custom processes and tailor-made business systems so businesses can thrive and grow. All right, and today's guest is Kimberly Allen. Hi, Kimberly.
Hi, how are you?
Good. It's so good to have you on this podcast.
I'm just honored to be here with you. I just have so much respect for your level of expertise. So to have been invited as a guest on your show is an absolute honor.
Well, thank you. And I feel the same. And we're going to have so much fun talking about presentations and virtual presentations because, Kimberly, you are definitely the expert in that area. So I'm going to give a little bit about your bio and then tell our listeners also about my personal experience working with you and using your presentation outline, which we're going to discuss. And it's going to be great. So first of all, Kimberly, you are the CEO and founder of Everything Webinar, which just turned 18 as a company. So congratulations.
Thank you.
That is such a huge accomplishment. That's awesome. And, you're a certified women-owned business. You specialize in virtual and in-person training and communication skills. And you bring your Hollywood background, which we're going to talk about because I have questions about that, combined with over 25 years of entrepreneurial and corporate experience. So that really makes you an expert in that area, as I said, right?
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So before we start, I want to give a big shout out to Jeannie Park from Tree Swing Video. And she is the expert at making videos for companies. And I actually had a podcast with her as well. So I'm going to link that podcast so our listeners can refer to it. But thank you, Jeannie, for introducing us.
Thank you, Jeannie. We love you.
Love you very, very much. And you should check out Jeannie's work. Amazing work on creating videos for companies. So absolutely incredible. So Kimberly, let's talk about presentations. So I think before the pandemic or during the pandemic, I bought your presentation, which you can find on Amazon. It's a template. It's a workbook, right? It's called Everything Webinar. Remind me the full name, remind our listeners so they can find it.
Sure. It's easier to search for Kimberly Allen, KimberlyAllen. And the secondary search would be Everything Webinar. And what you're looking for is the presentation structure template and user guide. So it's the actual template that you will download and the user guide that you'll download as well to support the template. It teaches you everything you need to know about all of the 17 steps that are included in the presentation structure template.
That's right. So I got that one and I started using it, and it completely changed the way that I do my presentations, because before I had to figure out what is going to be the agenda. Does it work? Does it not work? But then using your workbook and your template, I took your experience, your 25 years of experience of creating amazing presentations. And then I had a structure, I had an agenda, right? So every time I create a presentation, whether it is for creating a workshop for my clients, or it is creating a workshop for different audiences. So if I'm talking in front of an association, even when I'm talking in front of the nonprofit I volunteer for, any presentation that I do, that structure holds true. And it is very, very easy to follow. And it really makes it easy to create presentations. So I really like using it. And I wanted to thank you for putting it together and make it so easy to follow. And, when you and I connected again, I thought, okay, I would love to have you on this webinar so we can actually explain to our listeners what is the system or the process of creating a really good presentation.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for those accolades. I certainly appreciate it. And I'm glad that it has helped you. I think this presentation structure template and user guide has helped thousands of people around the globe at this point. And like you and I were talking pre-show a little bit about the fact that I have podcasters, sports broadcasters. We've tested this and vetted this template again around the globe in so many different demographics. And it isn't just for folks who are using Keynote or PowerPoint to build a slide deck. You can actually use pieces and parts of this structure in almost any presentation. And the beauty of it is that, there are 17 steps. If you get to step number 9, for example, and you don't need an agenda, you just toss it out.
Right.
That's the
exactly
beauty
right.
of the template, is that it gives you the structure. It gives you that foundation, those building blocks for what to do next.
All right. So let's start and talk about the actual process. So walk us through high level, because, if you want to get all the details, you definitely need to get the template, because that's how you're going to work. I mean, it actually gives you the templates of the slide numbers and what to put in there, etc. But let's talk about the overall process on how to create a really good presentation.
Great. Well, we'll focus this on the template, because that's what we're talking about right now. There are lots of different elements that we could speak about, but we'll focus on the template. So the presentation structure template and user guide, you can purchase it on Amazon. You can go to our website, which is www.everythingwebinar.com, if that's what you're looking for. And you don't have to purchase the whole package, even though it's a ridiculously low price, because we want this to be available to the masses. You can just purchase the template. Adi, did I give you the laminated version of the template?
I don't have the laminated. I have the PDF version, the ebooks that I purchased, and that's easy for me to use because I have it.
Okay, perfect. Well, I know that you're traveling. When I'm on a train or a plane or whatever the case may be, I take the laminated version with me, and it's set up to use with a dry erase marker, so you can actually make your notes on it. But anyway, that's a different part of the story. Once you download the template, clients will open up a PowerPoint, for example, and we have a deck that we can share with you if you like. That is just a blank deck. It just has the title of each section on each page, which makes it really, really easy for you to follow along. So if you want the extra download, which is the deck that is just a starter deck, we can get that over to you as well. The first step in the presentation structure template is choosing a really strong placeholder. And when you're looking at the template and then flipping back and forth to the user guide, so number 1 on the template is number 1 on the user guide. You read section number 1 for the directives on what are you looking for in a placeholder slide. That's all explained to you. The placeholder is basically the date, the time, and a really, really strong image that speaks the magic language of your target market or your particular audience. And it gives you the timing. How long should the placeholder be shown? For example, the placeholder, like your video, your pre-event video, which was extremely well done, by the way. That's actually considered a placeholder as well. So it gives the audience something interesting to look at that tells them what's coming up, what to expect, and engages them in the initial part of the event. We'll just relate this to a virtual event. And then you've got a producer potentially, or you've got somebody that can somehow interact with your audience in the very beginning. So yours, I think, is brilliant because the attendee listens to a video and has some interaction. I was thinking, oh, business success. Now I'm starting in the brand awareness. So we've got brand awareness, brand loyalty, brand recognition. We've got all those categories when we're talking about marketing. The placeholder is just one of those pieces of marketing. So anything,
Gina, I call you Ginny. Kimberly, I'm going to interrupt you here for a second. So the first slide, I've seen a lot of people and myself as well. I mean, I can be guilty of that, right? Is putting the name of the company, right? And the name of the presenter as the placeholder, as the first slide. And when people come, let's say the event is in person, they come in and sit down and they see that slide, or online. So to your point, what you were talking about is on my Zoom room, I have a video that was actually produced by Light Touch Media, and it was basically it's the placeholder. So people, before they come into my Zoom room, they can watch a video about us and what we do.
Yes.
But if we have but when you're doing a presentation, you're basically suggesting having an image, or let's say we're doing a presentation in person. So people come into the room and there is already the PowerPoint going, so they see the first slide. So that should be like a strong image, or it should be the name of the company in some ways, right? Like who you are.
Absolutely. Oh, definitely. Okay. Absolutely. And if it is a virtual event or a webinar, I always like to put an image of the presenters on either the first or the second slide. Now, you can have a combination placeholder. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can only have one slide for a placeholder. You can actually have one or two. That would be suitable. I've seen people use this structure in many different ways. If you have an image of a presenter on the slide, what happens in our brains is that we automatically make a connection to that individual. We have imprinted on who is going to speak to us, and we have started to develop an image and a perspective about their brand. So you can see it's not just a template to follow in a vanilla throw it out there type of style. There's a lot of thinking that's gone into the brain science behind why we use this structure and why we know that it's the most engaging structure and simplest structure that you will ever use. Once you use the structure, you won't go back. We save hundreds of hours to individuals building these presentations, which is such a huge value.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, so we have the first slide, which will be the actual, that's the one that people will see. You call it the placeholder, right? I mean, basically getting the awareness of who you are, who the speaker is, and making that connection. What are the other slides after that?
Well, we've got a myriad of slides to help you build your presentation. We've got the grabber opening, the credibility statement, the objective. One of the biggest areas that I feel people fail in their presentations is the objective. If you don't know why you're giving your presentation, how is your audience going to know? So I love to marry just an image that says the word objective on it, maybe with a little target or a bullseye or whatever images you like to use. That's one of my favorites. And you merely state the objective of the presentation. You can even say, my objective for you today is. Now, this is a couple slides down on the presentation structure template, but this is one of the areas that I feel, again, people absolutely miss. They miss the objective. And I heard you give an objective statement today, and you probably didn't even know that you were. Or maybe it's because you use the template all the time and you know that needs to be built into the beginning.
Well, I think it helps orient the audience in terms of where we are going, right? It is kind of like, you get on the flight and we go, okay, today we're going to flying from Portland to New York, okay, if I'm going to New York, maybe if I'm not, this is the wrong flight, I better get off the flight, right?
Yes.
But it sets basically your mindset that this is what I'm going to listen to. And it also helps you evaluate at the end, did I get that objective, right? So I think that definitely helps, and it aligns everybody on the same page. So definitely, I love to use the objective slide.
Yes. And let me just say that we're dealing most of the time with adult learners. You're an adult learner. I'm an adult learner. And we have the 3 basic learning styles, which is all built into the structure of the presentation structure template. And that is, we've got audio, we've got visual, and we've got kinesthetic. So we have covered all three adult learning styles in this presentation structure template. You have some people in the audience that can just listen to you. They don't need images. They don't need to touch or feel anything in the presentation, and they will learn. There are others like me, for example. I'm a kinesthetic learner. I need to chat. I need to see it. I need to hear it. I need to touch it. I need to feel it in order to understand what it is that I'm learning. So those learning styles are all built into and taken into consideration with this particular template.
So how do you integrate the kinesthetic? I mean, I understand the audio, the video. How do you also, it's the touch, meaning that you're going to have workbooks for them to use, or like you're passing the microphone so everybody can say something? Like how do you actually incorporate the kinesthetic?
Yep, absolutely. Those are all different measures that we use. We will sometimes ask the audience. Now, this is more in an educational and training setting, not necessarily just an informational webinar. But we would like to address the kinesthetic learners with the chat feature. So the chat, the Q&A, no matter what platform you're using, if you've got somebody typing and writing a thought, or you reach out and you ask them, I just said blank, 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 which was the correct answer, A, B, or C? And then you wait for a moment and you engage the audience that way. So that's just another way to engage the kinesthetic learners. Just like you were mentioning, you can ask people to take notes, or you can encourage them to take notes. You can actually pause during the presentation and push the note taking to the audience. You can actually have workbooks for them, like you were just mentioning. Some of the webinars these days, the bigger webinars that are more like trade shows, we actually send out ahead of time something called virtual swag. Virtual swag is a big, big deal these days. And we will send the tchotchkes out ahead of time so that the kinesthetic learners actually have something to touch. And everybody loves swag, right?
Oh, for sure. Yes. Even if you send a notebook that has your logo on it, and a pen that they can sit in front of the computer and write on. But
yes.
And of course, if you have an in-person presentation, it's not a problem to do that. Right. Good. So Kimberly, let's go back to our slide. So we have the attention grab. No, the first of all is the placeholder. Then you have the attention grabber, right?
Mm-hmm. The grabber opening.
Grabber opening.
Attention grabber.
Attention. What do you put there? Like what is the purpose of it, and what do you recommend that people will use for that particular slide?
Yes, the grabber opening is always fun, and it's oftentimes the most difficult element of your presentation to craft. It is less than 45 seconds to speak words to engage your audience. And this is oftentimes people will take 20 minutes, a half an hour, 2 hours just to nail the perfect grabber opening. And this is something as a linguistics coach, and I have a degree in applied linguistics as well. So words is a big deal for me. I'm really, really happy to help you craft your words and massage them in a way that sounds extremely professional, but really releases the fluff of the presentation. A lot of people have a lot of fluffy words that they don't really need. Shorten your sentences, get that grabber opening into 45 seconds, and speak the magic language to your audience for what's important to them.
Okay, so give an example of a grabber opening.
Well, let's just talk through this for you, for example. So you are an expert in systematizing your business, right?
Yeah.
So I'll turn this back on you. Tell me if you have a grabber opening, and I'm going to pull up my timer here and see if we can get this under 45 seconds. Let me pull up my timer. Okay. Tell me about a grabber opening that you have for your business.
So for instance, I can say companies that work with us are fast-growing companies lacking consistency. And in this presentation, I'm going to show you how we can create consistent processes for your business so you can grow and scale without a headache. How's that?
That's perfect. Okay, so that was 30 seconds. So that's even better. So you're a person that I would say has a grabber opening. It's well crafted. And of course, you're an amazing business professional. So it doesn't surprise me. You said a couple of different things. You addressed the audience. You said, I'll show you, which means that they are going to walk away with value. You are going to show them, teach them, tell them, give them the tools, show them the value, teach you a new skill. Those are all words that you can pack into a grabber opening. And there's a lot more words depending upon the industry that you're in. So rather than giving specific examples to folks, I think it's better to talk about this high level, because the grabber opening, and you just gave a great example, people can actually go backwards and rewind and listen to what you just said. Less than 30 seconds. And you grabbed my attention. You've given me exactly what I need to hear for why I should pay attention to you. Because remember, your audience is going to be thinking the old school WIFM, WIIFM, old school marketing term, I'm sure you've heard it, still applies today. People forget that our audiences are subconsciously thinking, what's in this for me? We're adult learners. How does this apply to me? How is this going to make me a better presenter? How is this going to make me look more professional? Is this going to land more pennies in my pocketbook? Those are all questions that we have subconsciously, and the presentation structure template and the certain elements that we've just talked about. And there are 17 of these. Dee and I have only talked about 3. There are 17 different areas of the presentation structure template. Each one of these as a collective whole, if you don't address these particular areas, your presentation is likely not going to see very high engagement rates. And Adi, what I don't think that we've talked yet about the video training tutorials. Those have not been launched yet. We actually have 17 of them that match the template. They match the user guide, and they're each less than 3 minutes apiece. So You have a trainer that is walking you through, for those auditory learners, you've got a trainer that's actually walking you through the template, so you can just listen if you want to. So that is something that will hopefully be public in February of next year.
Excellent. All right. So we're talking about the process of creating. Obviously, we're not going to go over all the 17 slides, right? But you have it separated into areas too. You have like the introduction, then you have the key areas. So talk to me, if you can tell us in a high level view, what are the key areas that you have to have in every presentation?
Well, we've talked about the placeholder, the grabber opening, the objective, and then everybody has the key points. We typically have 1, 2, or 3 key points in the presentation, and I think that's fantastic. I really think that a lot of presentations miss the next steps. So what do you expect your audience to do next? You've given me all this great information and I'm sold. I want to work with you, Adi, but what are the next steps? This is often left out of presentations. I'll watch presentations and think, okay, I'm sold, but where do I go next? And they don't give a very clear next steps. The next area that I like to focus on is the thank you slide. And I work in 34 countries now, or I have over the years, and I noticed that other countries seem to be a little bit more grateful than we are here in the US. And that's maybe because I've started practicing gratitude the last 3 years and I've been very, very active. I really feel like people just don't say thank you loudly enough and often enough. So I really like to put in whether it's verbal or on a slide, a thank you slide that says thank you in a big way. And that can actually be your logo. You can be your logo in a transparency. It can just be one more opportunity for the audience to see your logo. And that's just all part of the marketing that goes in behind this crazy, crazy digital world that we live in. So that's one area. And then we actually build a custom Let's Connect slide for you. We've got several different formats that you can choose from, and you can choose your own. It's just a Let's Connect. Here is my name. Here's my Twitter, my Instagram, my Facebook, my TikTok, whatever social sites you use, if you use them. Or it's just your name, your email, your phone number. But it's a very interesting slide. It's very, very image rich, and it's structured in such a way that it's easy to look at. We follow the rule of thirds for the Let's Connect slide. That's a whole different topic, by the way. I don't want to confuse your listeners. So those are another 3 areas that I like for people to really focus on: the next steps, the thank you, and the Let's Connect. And that's really at the end of the presentation.
Yeah,
there's a lot that goes on in the middle.
Yeah, for sure. But Kimberly, one thing that I tried, I don't know if you tried it or not, but in my last few presentations, I actually created a QR code. I use Hi, Hello, but there are many others that are,
yes.
You can create your digital business card and create a QR code. So if somebody scans that QR code, it immediately goes into they can save it to their phone, your email, your phone number, your social media links, etc. And that actually engages, like talking about kinesthetic learners. I mean, they can just take their phone, and right there, they can have your business card in their phone, and they can clear, and immediately it says save to contact. They can just save it and then have all your information. So I find it pretty powerful to have like this QR code in the middle of the slide of Let's Connect.
Well, let me just say that I think that's a fantastic idea. I'm actually maybe a little bit late to the game, but we just started using QR codes, and we're not proficient at using them yet. And we, our Monday morning meetings, we are talking a little bit more about QR codes and how they could actually help us systematize our business. So since that's your field, if you have any thoughts to share, I would love to hear that. And again, that's probably another podcast. But yes, I completely agree with you, because you're touching the screen. And then when you touch the screen, that gives you information, and it's right in front of you, and you can interact with it. So yes, you are brilliant.
Absolutely. And going on, I mean, I can go on, and you're right. This is can be another topic, but let's say you have a handout that you want to give. Let's say I'm talking about let's say I'm an HR professional, which I'm not, but let's say you are an HR professional and you're giving a talk about let's say hiring, firing, onboarding, etc. And you go, what, I have a great onboarding checklist. If you would like, I will say, usually you say, well, I will send it to you. Send me an email and I will send it to you. I'll give you a survey at the end of the presentation, write your email and I'll send it to you. So, time goes by, people get less enthusiastic, or we get busy and we forget. Let's say I attend that lecture, I go, yeah, I want to have that onboarding checklist. I go home, I forget about it, I don't need it anymore, whatnot, right? But when I'm sitting right there as a speaker on the screen, you go, okay, if you want to download a checklist for my onboarding checklist, go ahead and scan this QR code. Well, at that time and during the presentation, people are going to take out their phones and going to do it, even if they just want to feel like, they're part of the group, right? And in order for them to download it, you can have a gate. You can say, okay, enter your email or whatnot, and boom, it's right there. Or even if you don't do that, they downloaded it. They have something from you in their phone, right? So
yes,
I think that is the use of QR codes, because it can be interactive right there during the presentation, as opposed to having to wait for the follow-up. So that's an idea.
No, I think you're brilliant, Adi. And I'll say that again. I think you're brilliant, Adi.
Well, thank you, Kimberly. I think you are brilliant.
I love that.
Okay, so we have the process, which I'm really excited about. What are some of we talked about the do's. What are some of the don'ts? Some of the things that you've seen with people do during presentations that you go, oh no, please don't do that.
Okay, well here, I'll just demonstrate one for you right now. And this is, so I'm taking the box away from my computer, and I realize that some of your folks who are just listening won't be able to see this, but imagine that there's a laptop sitting on my desk and I have the camera angled just like this. So many presenters log in just like this. And what do you see? What's the first thing that you see when you log in? Well, you might see a really pretty ceiling. So I have a really beautiful open beam cedar ceiling. Great, fantastic. Nobody cares about my ceiling. And then they're looking right at my nose. Look at
That's
what
right. I see your nostrils.
Yeah, you're lucky. You've got nostrils right here. Nobody wants to look up your nose when you're giving a presentation. So I know I talk about this all the time and I'm so sassy about it. So you just have to bear with me. All I'm doing is taking my laptop and just putting it up on a little box. Who doesn't have an Amazon box? Or this is just a little crate for me. There was a Christmas gift that came in this last year. It's just a little wooden crate. It's free. You don't have to spend a lot of money to get your offices up to speed, your virtual offices, that is. You don't have to spend a lot of money. So raise the computer anywhere from about 8 to 10 inches, depending upon how tall you are or what the look is that you're trying to achieve. Just don't let it be up the nostrils. You want to aim for the dot on your computer. Typically, they're right on the top. And you want to aim for that dot to be right in the middle of your forehead. That gives you the best chance of engaging with your audience. You can see, and I know some people are just listening, but I'm looking at myself right now on the screen. Now I'm looking at a D. And what does that feel like to you? Like I'm not engaged with you, right?
Right.
We're not making eye contact. Now, when I look at the dot and you look at me speaking to you, it feels much more like we're in person and we're actually making that eye contact. So just become accustomed to looking into the green dot. I know it's human nature and it is the propensity to look at the screen because there's movement on the screen. Don't do it. That will not garner the highest engagement rates, that will not garner the highest engagement rates. And the goal is to engage your audience. Our audiences walk away with sometimes up to 95% engagement rates. And we've got some algorithms that we use to measure the engagement rates. Clients will come to us and we'll see that their presentations are at about 15% of the audience being engaged. And there's all kinds of different reasons for that. We have lots of different training programs. The presentation structure template is just one of the areas that is actually systematized and can save people a lot of time if they just engage with this template and they follow this structure.
Right. And then you also, so one of the don'ts is, or the do's is have your virtual office set up so it is conducive to a great presentation. And one of the things that you do offer, Kimberly, is a virtual audit of your office, right? A virtual office audit. So an audit of your virtual office to make sure that it is set up for a presentation. And it has 7 specific steps that at the end of it, you're going to be set up for the presentation.
Yes, absolutely. It's 30 minutes, 7 steps. And I will guarantee, even if you're a professional speaker or presenter, you have questions as well. We've all got questions about lighting, about the camera angle, about bandwidth, about virtual body language. The virtual office audit addresses all of those questions in a quick 30 minutes.
Amazing. I have another question for you. So now we talked about the process, but the middle part of the key points you want to present, what is your recommendation in terms of how many key points should be in a presentation? Because we can go into information overload. Sometimes I go to a lecture and I'm very engaged at the beginning, but then I go, and then I start looking at my, when is it going to be done, right? Because you get through a point where, okay, I got the information, I can't take anymore, right? What is your take in terms of how many points should be part of the key points?
Well, I think we probably should walk that backwards just a little bit to the beginning of the presentation. Whoever is setting the expectations in the beginning of the presentation, and there's a slide for that, that is where the presenter or the speaker or the moderator, the MC, the producer, whatever title they have in your particular situation, will set the expectation for the audience. For example, I'll be speaking for 30 minutes. At the 10-minute mark, we'll take a 1-minute break, or I'll be speaking for an hour. At the half an hour mark, we'll take a 5-minute break. Whatever those expectations are, because you are going to lose people during a presentation. You are going to lose that attention. So part of what we teach is how to gain, maintain, and then regain virtual attention. So it's not so much about how many key points are in the presentation. I've seen presentations that have one key point. I've seen presentations that have 5. And typically the one key point is a point in the middle of the presentation. That's typically where it happens. But this could be right in the middle of a 1-hour presentation. It could be right in the middle of a 15-minute presentation. And those are all things that you build up to as you use the presentation structure template. You go through the placeholder, the grabber opening, the objective statement, the credibility statement. These are all things that you build in ahead of time. So I would have to say,
and then you do the expectation after the credibility statement, right?
Yes, yes. So it's not so much about how many key points, it's actually how you frame the key points and how you set the expectation for the dissemination of the information.
Interesting. Okay, good to know. And what are your thoughts about how many words should be on a slide when you're presenting the key points? What would be some
well,
I'm just extracting all it because we have an expert here. So I'm gonna just take your best advice. But I like to follow. I tell you what I really like to follow. I like Presentation Zen. The book. I follow that in terms of I like to have a picture because I really like a picture that grabs attention with one sentence. And then they listen to me. They can still look at it. I mean, it gives me a placeholder to know what I'm talking about because I always write my notes below it. It gives the audience a way to know where we are at in the sequence. Because if I'm talking about 5 points, okay, here's point number 1. They look at it. I talk about it. Then point number 2. Sometimes if the point has a lot of information in it, I will have other slides that follow the point with, again, big bullet points because so people know where I'm in the sequence, because what I want to prevent is them start thinking, oh, what did she just say? What was point number 1? And I'm on point number 3, right? Yes. So I just make it very clear. But anyway, what are your thoughts?
Oh, I completely agree with you. I really don't care for slides that have bullet points, but let's face it, sometimes in some meetings, I work with a group of engineers, for example, their data is very dry and they have to deliver the data in a particular format because it's company protocol. Most of the time we receive slide decks that are just a blank white background with a bunch of bullets and a bunch of text. If you show that on a screen when I'm in your presentation, you will automatically lose me. It'll take me probably 2 minutes just to read what's on the slide. And our brains typically go to what is on the slide first. So we'll typically try to read what is in front of us. And guess what happens? You lose the message from the speaker. The most beautiful, valuable part of your presentation is what you are going to speak, whether that's recorded, whether that's live, whether it's in person, virtual, whatever the case may be. That is where the value comes in, is the beautiful words and the way that you've crafted them to marry that thought to this particular target market, because you care about them. You want them to come back. You want to engage with them again. So a lot of times I receive slide decks from engineering groups. They're actually a big group for us to work with because we teach presentation skills. And oftentimes we love you engineers, but oftentimes
I'm an engineer, Kimberly.
So I love you. Oftentimes engineers, though, are not trained in the soft skills that they need for communication and presentations, right? I know that to be true because I've worked with these folks for years.
I object.
So we actually teach those soft skills, and oftentimes the decks will come to us without any soft skill elements. It's a blank page, white, with a bunch of text. That is not going to engage your audience on any level. You've got to break down the bullet points to fewer words per bullet. And I'll give you just a quick high-level gauge for people that have not attended any type of training. Your gauge for bullets on a slide, if you are going to use them, is 5 bullets, 5 words per bullet. Now that's very high level. That does not get into the brain science of presentations and how to craft a good presentation. But if you have nothing else, 5 bullets, 5 words per bullet. I guarantee you can give me any concept that it's taken 2 sentences for you to write into bullet number 1. I'll give you back 5 words to describe what you just said in those 2 sentences. There isn't any reason that you can't pare down the words for each bullet. So like you were talking about before, Presentation Zen, there's lots of other books and other training programs out there. I prefer images that are very, very powerful. And then you've got the bullet markers that come along with it. So you might have one image and then one bullet marker that keeps you on track and keeps the audience on track, like you were mentioning before, with where you are in the presentation. So if you're talking about a key point and you've got 5 slides to support that key point, you put the markers in there with each and every slide so the audience knows we're in section 1, we're in section 2, we're in section 3, we're in section 4. And then I also like to use gray out builds. So the gray out builds come from the animation feature, and we'll just focus on PowerPoint for purposes of this conversation. The gray out builds actually engage your audience in such a way that there's a tiny bit of movement on the screen. It's not big Hollywood, it's not a big show, but there's a tiny bit of movement. When you fade bullet number 1 into a gray from a bold black, for example, the audience can still read the sentence in bullet number 1, but they're following right along with you in bullet number 2 because bullet number 2 is now bold black. Bullet number 1 is gray. It's still sitting on the screen. So the concept is still there. Your brain can still process it, but the natural propensity is to go with where the speaker is because you've got the text on the screen, you've got their voice leading you to whatever is in black bold. So gray out builds, again, just an animation feature in PowerPoint, which we've got plenty of YouTube videos on, by the way. It's very, very simple and easy. I can teach you how to do this in less than 4 minutes. If you are going to use bullets, don't do it without a gray out build.
I love it. What a great advice. Well, Kimberly, we're getting to the end of the podcast, although we can probably talk for another 2 hours. And we will do another podcast because I definitely want to also have your process on the, how to audit, like the, how to set up your virtual office, which, it's like a lot of us want to know about it. We're going to talk about a lot of other things, but I do need to ask you the question about your Hollywood background. Can you tell me about that?
Oh my gosh, this is such a funny story. I've been telling this for years. When I was very young, let's just say that I was about 18, I actually went to a fashion design school in the Los Angeles area. That school is now closed, but it was a great experience for me. I studied fashion design and fashion merchandising for 2 full years. And I worked in Hollywood. I had an internship at the Barbara Fields buying office, in the middle of Los Angeles. It was a great career. But the secret behind why I went to fashion design school was because I thought I was going to be a famous model. So at the time I had been already modeling for a couple years in high school. And my agent at the time said, they've just chosen Cindy Crawford. She's going to be the next big thing. And he says to me, because I'm tall, thin, I'm 5'10" and thin, trim build. And he says to me, you know what, you're going to be next. They are definitely going to be looking for somebody like you because they're looking for tall, thin women. Well, not so much the case. So I did a lot of modeling, acting, voiceover. I did work a lot in Hollywood, but the whole goal for me was because I went down there with stars in my eyes thinking I'm going to design school and I'll be associating with lots of famous people and I'll just go down and walk on the boulevard and I'll just run into somebody who will pick me up, an agent that will think I'm great. Well, let me tell you, nothing compares to Cindy's beauty. I absolutely love her. I've been telling this story in training programs for years and years and years. Well, I didn't become famous.
Well, you became famous in your own right, in your own area. In my own mind. Shining. Well, no, because you help tons of businesses and tons of people be successful. So I think that's your claim to fame. So absolutely.
Yes. So that was my Hollywood background. I do have quite a few years where I worked in Hollywood, and I actually did get paid and made a decent living, I'll have to say, but did not become a famous Hollywood model.
Well, that's an amazing story.
Hey, I was young. I was ambitious. Well, I'm still young and ambitious, but
that's right. That was like 10 years ago we were talking about. So.
I didn't know any better. I didn't know what I didn't know. And I think that really is actually a good success story to tell for those folks that say they're afraid of failure. Let me tell you, I have failed so many times, I can't even count. I think you don't know this, but I've actually had 2 other companies over the years that have not survived. So,
well, that's where you are. That's why you are at where you are now, and how you can help people, because you have that experience. You're not just talking out of an ivory tower where you don't do anything. You actually live life and experience, and there you go. Well, Kimberly, it's been a pleasure having you on this podcast. As I promised at the beginning, the objective was to learn about how to create perfect presentations, and we're definitely on the road to do that. We have the process laid out by you with all the different tips and tricks and anecdotes, which I loved. We're going to put it into a blog post so our listeners can also read it and can use it. We're going to have links to your website and to the template on Amazon, so people can buy it, whether from your website, Amazon. They can contact you because you are definitely a wealth of information, and I think we really delivered on our objective. And I want to thank you for being here and sharing the information, and thank our listeners for listening and our viewers for viewing. So thank you so much.
Adi, I know we didn't discuss this ahead of time, but we have decided to offer to your listeners a free download. You can actually download the presentation structure template, just the template without the user guide, at no cost. You can do that from our website, everythingwebinar.com. The download code, once you add the product into the shopping cart, is Klevit Free, Klevit free, Free. So Klevit, Klevit free. And that will get you a free download. There's no obligation whatsoever to purchase. I'll leave it at that.
Excellent. That will be amazing. And I will definitely put it there on the show notes, and you definitely need to take advantage of it. Thank you so much, Kimberly, for your generosity. This is really going to help a lot of people. Thank you so much.
Well, we hope so. And thank you so much for having me. Again, I'm just honored to be a guest on your show and work with such an amazing professional. I really, really love the way that you support your community and the services that you offer to help company business owners, CEOs, presidents, vice presidents, just even small business owners to systematize their businesses. I've learned so much from you in just a short period of time. So I really appreciate your expertise.
Thanks for listening to the Systems Simplified podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.